Bright Tuty. Every student matters.
Now, let's move on and answer some questions. Cell are basic structural units of living organisms explained. So the reason why the cells are known as the basic structural organisms, because a structure of any organ depends on the kind of cell it is made up of. Especially in the large organisms like human beings, dogs, plants, which are visible to us. In those organisms we see the cells are quite distinct from one another. The variety of shapes and sizes are quite different, and in this particular chapter you will also study how different those shapes and sizes are, right? So why is it called as the basic structural unit of the life? Because from the cells there is the formation of tissues, right? And then from the tissue organs are formed, right? That is the reason why the starting of any organism is from a single cell, right? Majority of cells cannot be seen directly with our naked eyes because organisms are generally unicellular, cells are microscopic, cells are only present inside the body, cells are grouped into tissues. So cells are actually microscopic, and that's the reason why we are not able to see the cells with the naked eyes. The instrument used to observe cells is the microscope. Nowadays, powerful microscopes like electron microscope have been invented so that detailed study of the structure of the cell can be done. What is a cork? So cork is basically a part of the bark of the tree, right? And it is dead, and when we say cork, it is usually used as the caps, or they are used as caps on the bottles of wines and different other bottles basically. So it's dead, it's a dead cell. It is made up of dead cells, right? And it is a part of the bark of the tree. Who discovered cells? We've already studied that Robert Hooke was the one who discovered cell in 1665, and he also coined the term cell because of the partitioned blocks that he saw, partition block that he saw in the thin slice of the cork. So in this way, students, we started studying about cell, and the very first thing which we talked about was the discovery of cell. Why we need to study about it? Because we need to understand from where the study and this particular topic that we are picking up has started. How are multicellular organisms formed from a single cell? So the multicellular organisms are formed from a single cell, that is your fertilized egg, right? Fertilized egg. And the multicellular organisms are formed by the division of this fertilized egg. That means if this is your single fertilized egg, what will happen? This will further divide into two, right? So how we can indicate it is with this. So it can further divide into two. These two cells will further divide into 4 cells, and then further it will divide into 8 cells, and so on, right? So it keeps on dividing and forming new organism, right? So because of the division of the fertilized egg, right, this formation of multicellular organisms takes place. How are stains important for observing cells? So stains are important for observing cells because once the stains are absorbed by the cell, what happens is it helps in studying the detailed structure, of the cell, right? So this is how we see that these stains are really important, because it helps us first of all to understand the clear shape of the cell, and also whatever is present inside the cell, that also is quite visible, quite easily visible to the person who is observing the cell. Which of the following is not a unicellular organism? So we know amoeba and yeast are the unicellular organism, and we clearly know that yak is a multicellular organism. What are tissues? So tissues are group of cells, group of similar cells, right? These cells come together to form a tissue, and not only these are similar in structure, but they are also similar in functions, right? Then these tissues combine to form an organ which performs a certain kind of a function. So in this way, students, we talked about the number of cells that are present in the organisms and how, basing on the number of cells, we are able to differentiate organisms into multicellular and unicellular organisms. Question is, the unit of measurement used for expressing dimension or size of the cell is micrometer. Why? Because usually the cells are very small, they are microscopic, so this is the most accurate unit to measure the size of a cell. How is the cell related to its function? The size of the cell is related to its function. Like for example, if we talk about the nerve cell, so nerve cell is long because it has to relay the message quickly, right? So in this way we see that the size depends on the function that they are performing, right? If we talk about the egg cell in the human beings, the egg cell is the largest, whereas the nerve cell is the longest, right? So why is egg cell the largest? Because after fertilization, the egg cell becomes egg, and when the egg cell is fertilized, it becomes zygote, and this zygote divides further. That's why it is the largest, right? So in this way we see that how the function of the cell is dependent, or rather the size of the cell is dependent on the function it performs. Are there any cells visible to the unaided eyes? Yes, the cells, that is the eggs of your hen, duck, ostriches, usually those are the eggs of organisms, when we say, are the ones which are visible to the naked eyes. Size of cell of an organism has no relation with the size of its body. Do you agree? Yes, the answer to this is yes. And why do we agree? Because the size does not play any role, or it has no size of the organism has no significance in the size of its the cell, because size of the cell depends first on the function, what kind of function it is performing, and based on that the size of the cell varies, right? It is not dependent on the size of an organism. So in this way, students, we talked about the size of the cell, and we also talked about the shape and number of the cell. Once we've understood the variety of variety of shape, size and number of the cell that we have in the living world, in the next sessions we are going to talk about the basic parts that are present in all the cells, right?